Hey everybody, welcome to the Cardboard Commander. My name is Jerry and I'm your host for today. We're going to be doing a playthrough of Manila, the Savage Streets 1945. This is going to be a 9-episode little segment. The turns won't be very long, probably about 20 minutes a turn. But we're going to go through each turn of the game, kind of explain the mechanics of the game, probably make a lot of mistakes, and just kind of show you all what the game's all about. So I hope that you all enjoy this. Let me know if you do. Let me know if you don't. But stay tuned and let's go and let's play Manila, the Savage Streets, 1945. I'm going to play the entire game, so we'll have 9 quick little videos to explain each turn. I'm sure I'll probably make a couple mistakes, so if you all see something, let me know. But otherwise, we're going to kind of walk through this and play our first game of Manila. So to start off with, is you put the American pieces, they're all labeled in what areas they go in. This is the only time that you can have more than 6 units in an area without being overstacked. HQ units do not lend to stacking values, so you can have 6 units in there and the HQs do not count against that. All the other areas have been covered with Japanese defense pieces. I'll show you how I kind of like to do the combat, and I've gotten practice with Stalingrad advanced to the Volga, so that's how I like to do that. So we're going to start off. You start off with the turn marker in turn 1, of course. You get reinforcements. The Americans get reinforcements in turn 2 and turn 6. You also, I put all the artillery pieces, available artillery down here, and I'll show you how we purchase those. I put the random events counters to the right here. I use these little blank counters for bloody streets, and I'll show you why later. And everybody else has been down. You'll see these chits, and I don't know if you can see them on the video, but basically what you do is you break the chits up into urban, clear, and fort, and you shuffle them around and you put them on the matching icons on there. So we don't know what the defense is for the Japanese, and that's one of the really cool parts about this game. The game's played in phases, and there's basically a sequence of play, and the sequence of play is on the player 8 card. So the first phase is the dawn phase, and that's where we're going to go ahead and start. So the dawn phase is you've got reinforcements. Of course, on turn 1, we don't have reinforcements, so you don't have to worry about that. The second part of the dawn phase is the permanent withdrawal. So on turn 6, there's a phase where you have to withdraw certain units, and we'll go over that when we get to that part of it. Then you have the leader mortality. So if one of the HQ units have to go to the out of action box, then you have to roll at the beginning of the turn to see how that leader's wounded. So a 1 or a 2, and that leader leaves the game, and that's not good, and we'll explain to you why when it comes to combat. 3 and 4, if you roll a 3 or 4, they come in on the next turn, so you put it on the turn track, and if it's a 5 or 6, you put it onto the board on that turn, so it's not a big issue. So after the leader mortality, then you go ahead and you go into the random event phase. And the random event phase is you basically take on the player 8 card, and it's also on the board as well, but on the player 8 card you can see the numbers. So you roll 3d6 and you consult that random event. So we've got 10, 14. So if you look at 14, it is airborne pause. Now, it's the 11th airborne pause on turn 1. All pause results are a no result. So you go ahead and just move on. But on turn 1, you do not use the pause result. So after we do the random event phase, then we go to the supply phase. Turn 1, the least amount of supply you can have is 12. That's automatically there, but you can earn more if you roll higher. So you take 4d6 and you roll. I've got 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15. So that's good. So we're going to move this up to 15. And you want to have as much supply as you can. Of course, every turn, but this first turn is very important, and I'll explain to you why. So now you can purchase supply units. So during the game, during the supply phase, you can buy American artillery. You can buy an engineer. So you pay 1 point for artillery, you get +1 on attack. for 2 points on the engineers, you get +2 on the attack. Plus there's some optional rules which we're not using today. We're not using air support. And then if you want to replace an infantry unit, it's 2 points. An armor unit is 3 points. And if you want to boost your morale, it's 3 points. So again, these are on the player A cards, and it's also on in the rule book as well. But the player A cards are very good. I've made copies, so I don't have to flip it back and forth, and it's on the board. But the player A card is very good. So so now during this supply phase, we're going to go ahead and purchase, and we have 15 points. So there are 11 available artillery support counters. So we're going to purchase all of those, which is going to take us down to 4. And then what we're going to do is we're going to buy the last 2, or we're going to get the last 2 engineer support for 0. So now we have all the available artillery that we can have, and I'm going to show you why that's so important on the combat phase. Now during the combat phase, you can activate an area, and you move that area, and then you complete the combat, and then you can go to the next area, activate them, and so on. So we're going to activate Grace Park Airfield right away. And again, in this group, we have a couple of infantry and an HQ unit. So they're going to go ahead and go into Balara. And then we're going to also support them with a couple armor units. And then the other 2 infantry and HQ, they're going to jump down into San Francisco Del Monte Estate, and they're going to be supported by armor as well. So again, remember, you can only overstack at the beginning of the game. So now that we're here, we're not overstacked. 6 units in an area is the max you can have. Now that we're in this area, the first thing we're going to do is I want to make your attention to the attack defense value track. For those of you who've had Stalingrad, this track's not on the board, and Stuka Joe made a really great little addition and you can get that on Board Game Geek. But they've actually added it to the Manila board, and that's fantastic because you're going to see why here in a minute. So we moved into the Balara. Each area's got a little symbol. So Balara is a clear area, so it's a circle. The defense is TEM-2. So we start off with that. And now, here's the cool part. We flip over the defense, and it says Barrage 4. So that adds 4 more points to defense. So they start off with 6, and then they each have a special thing that goes with the barrage. So the barrage is the American player must either place 1 attacking infantry or armor unit in the out of action box prior to combat, and it's the American player's choice, or you can flip everybody to spent and retreat. So it's early in the game, we can't retreat, we need to make up as much room as we can. So we're going to go ahead and take 1 of the armor units, and we're going to place them in the out of action box. Now on the player aid card, there's a step-by-step combat resolution little area, so you want to go ahead and go by that. So the first part of the attack value is you take a leading unit and you make that the leading unit. So our leading unit in Balara is going to be this armor unit, the 7-6 armor unit. So we go to, of course, the first number is combat, second number is movement. When we talk about movement, it takes 4 movement points to go into an area with an unrevealed Japanese defender, and we both had, the infantry actually has 6 movement points, and the armor has 6, and some of the armor even has more. But so we had plenty of space to get in there. So now we take the lead unit, which is 7. Then you get to add 1 for each other unit. So you get to add 1 for the infantry. We get to add 1 for the HQ because he has somebody that's in his division with him. And then we get to add the other armor unit. So we've got 7. Then we get to add the infantry, the HQ, and the armor. So now we're at 10. Now you put any artillery that you want to use. Now there is a limitation. You can only put as many counters you have attacking. That's how many supply units you can use. So in this instance, we have an infantry and 2 armor units. We're going to go ahead and put 3 artillery down, and just the basic artillery, but that's going to add 3 to the combat value. So now we're at 13. You're going to see why I'm trying to pile on here. After we do that, then you go down. you have a combined arms attack. So a combined arms attack is any attack that has an armored unit, an infantry unit, and artillery. So we have that, so that adds 1. Then you go down the list and it says American morale +1. If it's over 10, we're at 19, so we get to add 1 more there. So we're at 15 to 6, and we'll go ahead and each Japanese and the Americans roll 2d6, and we'll see how the combat comes out. So the Japanese roll a 7, so they're at 13. The Americans roll a 5, so we're at 20. So that means we won by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points. That's essential because the barrage defense is 4. So if you win by more, and it has to be by more, not equal, so you have to win by 5, then you overrun. And what overrun does for you is that means we get to keep these units fresh, and they can be activated again later in this turn. So we take off the barrage counter, put it over here, take a area control counter, put it on the area, raise your control to 4. Take off your artillery and put it in the use support units box. And we keep these people fresh and they can continue to move. Okay? So now we're going back into the San Francisco estates and we're going to go through the same routine. Again, it costs 4 to go in there because they're not revealed. And they have to do a mandatory attack. I didn't mention that over here. So anytime you go into an unrevealed place, you have to do a mandatory attack. And what that means is if we would lose, we would have to become spent and then retreat out of there if it was a mandatory attack. So we're going to look at this again. This is an urban area and it's designated by a square. So it starts off with a 3 defensive value. And then we're going to go ahead and flip over the unit and it's an ambush. And it's a 7. So they're at 10. And ambush, what that does, that special thing is ambush is you place the lead attacking unit in the out of action box after combat resolution. Ignore the combat result if it was a repulse. So if you get beat, they don't make you do that, they just make you go back. So we're at 10. So again, they're at 10. So we start off, our lead unit's going to be an army unit of 7. We get to add 1 for every other unit. So we have 2 more infantry and the HQ. So that's 3 more. So that goes to 10. We also have that other army unit. So that's going to go to 11. Now we can add more artillery. And we're going to go ahead and add 3 more artillery to that area. So we can add 3. So now they're at 14. Then we're going to go down, and after that, you go to the combined arms. So yes, we have infantry, armor, and support, so we get to add 1 more. And then we have the morale is high enough that we get to add 1 more. So we're at 16. So 16 to 10, and we're going to go ahead and roll. And again, our goal is to overrun so we can keep going. The Japanese roll a 6, so they're at 16. So this is a good example. So we're each at 16 before we do our result. They are a 7, so we have to win by 8. So our dice roll was 7. So we're going to win by 7. So we're going to win the battle, but we don't get to overrun. So what that means is we take this off, and we put a control marker on there for the Americans. We put the used support units in the use box. We put the control unit up 1 more, so now we have 5. However, now we can't advance, so we flip these to spent, and they are done for the day. After that, we're going to come over here to the Calacan. If I'm saying things wrong, I apologize. So we're going to move, there's 3 infantry units and an HQ. We're going to move them over here into Santa Mesa Estate. They're going to be aided by an armor unit. Then we're going to take the HQ over here with 3 more infantry, and they're going to go down into Mapejo. And they're going to be supported by an armor unit. And then we're going to take the last HQ with 3 infantry, and they're going to drop down into Kokomo Island with armor support. So again, you can stay overstacked at the beginning of the game, but once you get into the game, 6 units are the most. And of course here we have 3 infantry, 1 armor, so we're only at 4. So we're going to do Santa Mesa Estate first. It's a clear area, so they start off with 2. Let's see what they're defended by. Oh, an elite. So an elite unit, they get to roll 3 dice now in combat, and they get to drop the lowest result for their dice. Also, his defensive factor is a 10, so that's huge. So they're at 12 to start off with. So for me to overrun that area, I have to win by more than 10. That's going to be a tough nut to crack there. So we go back to combat. The lead unit's a 6. We get to add 1, 2, 3 infantry in the HQ for 10. Now we add our artillery. We're going to add 2 regular artillery and 1 engineer support. So we're going to add +4 to that area. So that puts us up to 14. We have a combined arms attack because we have infantry, tank, and support. So we go up 1 more. And then we also have the morale is above 10, so we get to add 1 more. So we're at 16 to 12. And the Japanese, get to roll 3 dice in their combat. So let's see how that works out. So the Japanese roll a 6, 4, and a 3. So they're going to leave the 3 off. So they roll a 10. So they go from 12 to 22. We're not going to overrun, that's for sure. We actually rolled an 11. So it was a good roll for us. So we go to 27. But again, we had to win by more than 9. So we still win the area. So that area goes, right? And then we go ahead and we put the used support over here. We put a control marker down, and these people are flipped because they can't go anymore. They did not overrun. So now we come over here to Mapeho. Same thing. So they're in the urban area, so they start off with 3 defense. We're going to flip them over, and they are an ambush. And ambush to me is one of the harshest things in this game. Ambush, basically, you take the lead attacking unit place the lead attacking unit in the out of action box after combat resolution. So that's a pretty tough one because it's usually going to be one of your bigger units. So like this is going to be our lead unit, so we're going to lose that armor unit until next turn. So, which is fine, but you got to pay to get him back, and we'll show you that. He's also a defensive 9. So they're at 12. So again, overrunning him, we have to get higher than 9. So that's going to be a tough task as well. So we get to add our leading units of 6. We get to add the 3 infantry and the HQ for 10. We get to add artillery support, so we'll add 2 artillery support to that. Well, you know what? Yeah, we're going to roll 2. We're going to put 2 on there. We're not going to overrun, but we also don't want to lose. So that's going to put us at 12. We're a combined arms attack for 13. And our morale qualifies for the other, so we're at 14. So it's 12 to 14. So let's see how this works out. So the Japanese roll a 7. So 12, 19. The Americans roll a 3. Womp, womp, womp. So that's a 17. So they have lost this, so they have to flip over, become spent, and retreat back to the the area with they came. Now, because of the ambush, if we hadn't got beaten, that armor unit would have had to go to the out of action box. But since we were repulsed, it doesn't do that. It just goes back and retreats. I'd still rather have won and just been able to go forward, but that wasn't in the cards. So now we're going to go to Kokomo Island. They're also an urban area, so they start off at 3. Their defender is Barrage at 6, so that's a 9. And the barrage is we have to flip 1 unit over to spent. Let me make sure I got that right. Oh no, I'm sorry. So we have to flip a unit over and it goes the out of action box, which we're going to do, or you can flip them all to spent and retreat. But again, we're not here to retreat on this first turn, so we're going to go ahead and have combat. So we've got the lead unit is a 6 armor unit, so we start off with 6. We've got 2 infantry and an HQ, so we add 3 more, so we're both at 9. We get to add artillery, so I'm going to add 1 engineering unit, so that's going to add +2. We get combined arms because of infantry and armor and artillery. And then we also get +1 for morale. So we're at a 9 to a 13, so let's see how that works out. The Japanese roll a 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They go to 16. The Americans roll a 5. So they go to 18. So there's no overrun, but however we did win. So the urban marker comes off. We put a control marker in there. We take the used supply unit and put it in the used supply box. We move up the control marker. And then we flip these people to spent, and they are done for the day. Then we come down here to the bottom of the board with the 11th airborne. So remember, we drew the pause random event, but on the first turn, it's treated as a no result, so we don't go by that. So they're going to take their 3 infantry and the HQ, and they're going to go into Malabay Estate. And again, it takes 4 to go in there. Malabay Estate is an urban area, so it starts off with a TEM of 3, and they are actually defended by an ambush of 5. So they go to 8. And the ambush is place the lead attacking unit in the out of action box after combat. So our lead unit's going to be an infantry. So we're at 4. We add 1, 2 infantry and an HQ for 3 more. We get to add artillery. We're going to add artillery and an engineer, so we get to add +3 to that. Remember, you get +2 for engineer, +1 for artillery. So we get to add 3 to that. We're not a combined attack because we don't have any armor, but we do get the morale boost to 11. So we're 11 to 8. So the Japanese roll a 6. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they go to 14, and the Americans, boy, they're just not rolling very well. They roll a 3. 1, 2, 3. So it's even, so there's a stalemate. So what happens during a stalemate is we take the used supply and we put it back over here. The defender stays, the Americans stay, and they're spent. And I'm going to put, then next turn they'll have to roll bloody streets at the beginning, and I always put a little marker on here just to remind us that we have to roll bloody streets before we start combat. It's just something I do. You don't have to do that. So remember, we had the unit that overran, so they're going to activate and they're going to move into the water supply pipeline. That's a clear area, so the Japanese start off with a defense of 2. Let's see what's in there. A fanatic at 4. So they're at a defense of 6. The fanatics are tough because what happens with a fanatic is if you win the battle, it becomes a stalemate. So the only way to really win the battle is to overrun the unit. If you don't overrun, it becomes a stalemate. So fanatics are tough. There are some fanatics that have like 9 and 10 ratings. That's really tough. So here we're looking at a 6. So our lead unit is a 7 armor unit. So we start off with 7. We get to add 1 infantry, 1 armor, and an HQ for 3 more. We don't have any more available artillery support. We don't have a combined arms attack because there's no artillery. But we do have the morale bonus, which takes us up 1 more to 11. So we're at 11 to 6. So let's see how this works out. The Japanese roll a 9. from a 6, so they go to 15. The Americans roll an 11, so they go from 11 to 22. So now that's a 4, so we have to win by more than 5. Or we have to win by more than 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We do that. So that fanatic comes off. We put a control marker there. We move up our control, and these units get to stay fresh again. So we're going to go ahead and keep moving with them. They're going to go down to Camp Murphy. And again, it's a clear area, so the Japanese start off with 2, and they are defended by a barrage of 3. So they're at 5. So these groups are getting pretty lucky with the low defense values over here. Now, with the barrage, the American player must either place one of the attacking units in the out of action box, or they can be spent and move back. So what we're going to do there is we're going to go ahead and just flip. We're going to go ahead and take the little armor unit out, and we're going to continue with the attack. So we get to add 7 to start off with our main unit. We have an infantry and an HQ, so we get to add 2. There are no more artillery. We don't get combined arms, but we do get the morale. So it's 10 to 5. So we go ahead and roll again. The Japanese roll a 9. So they go to 14. And the Americans roll an 11. So now they're rolling, so they went to 22. So guess what? They actually overrun again. So that goes out of there. We add another control marker. We move the control marker up, and they can continue to move down into Marikina River. So we're going to do that just to see. We're probably pushing our luck a little bit there. That's a clear area as well. So that's a TEM of 2. They are defended by an ambush of 6. So they go to 8. And the ambush again, we place a lead unit, attacking unit in the out of action box after combat is done, unless we get repulsed. So we get to add to 7 for the lead attack unit. We get to add 1 for infantry, 1 for HQ, so we get to add 2 more. There's no artillery. It's not a combined attack, and we add 1 more for the morale. So it's a 10 to 8. So let's see how this works out. The Japanese roll a 7. So they go to 15. The Americans roll a 9. Boy, they are on fire now. And they go to 19. So again, they only win by 4, so it's not an overrun, but they do win. So the ambush comes off. We put a control unit, a control marker in there. A control marker. We add 1 more for the control, and then these people become spent, and they've done a great job. So they took over 4 areas in their little time. So now all the combat is done. So now we go into the last phase, which is the end phase. When you reach the end of the game phase, morale comes down by 1, which I've already moved to 18. And then each unit that was already flipped to spent gets flipped to fresh. And now we're ready to start turn 2. Well, everybody, I've ended turn 1. And as you can see, I made a few mistakes. I don't know why I didn't like the ambush result. So I just kept not doing that. But I did clean up the board. I fixed everything that we could. And so far, turn 1's gone okay. I made a few mistakes, which I'm going to make. And so I appreciate you all hanging in there with me. But other than that, we'll get ready for turn 2. Thanks for watching. If you like what you're seeing, do the YouTube thing, ring the bell, do all that sort of thing. And come back to Cardboard Commander. We'd love to see you. Thanks, and we'll see you for turn 2.